Oh, London, you truly take my breath away sometimes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing here at Middle Temple on the grounds of the Knights Templar, the former grounds of the Knights Templar. These are the law schools of the Inner and Middle Temple. But this section is the Middle Temple, and directly in front of you is Middle Temple Hall. Good morning, everybody. Sinead here on the top of the Victoria Embankment. I am standing directly opposite, it's right behind me, have a look, Blackfriars Station. And we've just exited the station. I'm so sorry, the wind is blowing my hair all over the place. And we are going on a journey of 800 years of history. Ladies and gentlemen, there's very few places in London where you can actually leave the busy hustle and bustle and walk into an area that makes you feel like you're back in the 12th century. Today, we're talking about the law schools of the Inner and Middle Temple. We have so much featured on this tour: the Knights Templar, the dissolution of the monasteries by Henry VIII. We're going to be speaking about the Knights Hospitaller, and of course the law schools of the Inner and Middle Temple. Wait until you see the grounds, 3-acre estate of the Inner and Middle Temple. Stay tuned, you guys. I'm excited to show you this. I can't believe I haven't shown you already. And we're going to get right back into the thick of it, and a nice little visit into one of the most famous churches in London. So we'll start with the reason that these Inns of Court were founded. And as I mentioned earlier on, there are 4 Inns of Court: Inner and Middle Temple, Lincoln's Inn, and Gray's Inn. So technically they serve actually as the headquarters of the branch of the legal profession here in London and the UK. And they are known as barristers. So these wigged and black-gowned advocates, they've basically monopolized the courts here in the UK since medieval times. And you'll all be familiar with those long black gowns and white wigs that they wear. I mean, it's fascinating actually we may see a few of them later on Fleet Street, because they frequent the Bank of England pub up here as well at lunchtime. It's incredible to see them in there, and we're approaching the Tudor gates. But inns are technically associated with the barristers. Let's just get you across here. With the barristers, and they're a central body which compromises the master of the bench, and they are normally drawn from the most senior members of the barristers, and that is the King's Council and the highest rank of a practicing barrister. So the inns in here provide office space for barristers, a library for research, a chapel for spiritual worship, which is shared by both inns actually. And this is the most fascinating part of all the buildings that are here. We're going to be visiting inside Temple Church as well, a resting place of a lot of the Knights Templar. Some of them are the most, they're actually even present at the signing of the Magna Carta. And they also in here have a dining hall where they're all encouraged to dine with each other. It serves as the focal point basically for the inn's social and ceremonial calendar. So look at that incredible Tudor gate. It actually was attacked in 1691 when the lawless Alsatians regularly attacked the lawyers on the grounds. They attempted to board up this entrance to prevent them from arriving in to their Inns of Temple. And unfortunately a terrible riot ensued, and one man was killed before the sheriff could arrive. So this is the famous Tudor Gate, and this enters in some of the most famous buildings in London. Now they may be a little bit peculiar about filming, so I won't be able to do a filming me walking through the gate, but immediately you're struck with the symbolism of the Inner Temple, and that's the first one we're going to see as we first arrive in. And that is taken from their coat of arms, the Pegasus you see there up on top. And we'll see a griffin over most of the beautiful gates in here as well, and they're closely associated with Gray's Inn. So let's take a walk, and it literally is like stepping back. Automatically you're struck by the peace and the serenity and the quietness of this truly spectacular place. These buildings you see along here date back to 1670 in the era, of course, Sir Christopher Wren. Right behind me are the paper buildings. The original building would have been 1610. However, these current buildings are 1838, the paper buildings here. But it's became more famous now as well, Inner Temple, for its famous barristers who became more famous writers than they did barristers, in fact, including Bram Stoker, most likely Geoffrey Chaucer, and Horace Rumpole. So that's the paper buildings, folks. Let's have a quick walk down here by King's Bench. So we're starting here at the Inner Temple, and we're at the very end of King's Bench Walk. And this, number 11, is associated with a former Prime Minister here in the UK and a former Prime Minister of India, Mahatma Gandhi, and Tony Blair and his wife Cherie Blair would have been affiliated with number 11, as would Lord Irvine, and he was a gentleman that was actually appointed to the cabinet of Tony Blair. But Mahatma Gandhi would have trained on these grounds as well. So these beautiful buildings of Inner Temple date back to 1670, and they're largely Christopher Wren. But they're stunningly beautiful, as you can see, 3 to 4 stories high, and a beautiful, beautiful part of the grounds of Inner Temple. Now we'll make our way up here, and I want to show you their hall. And each inn has its own hall, normally closed actually to the public, but I do believe you can get into Middle Temple at certain times of the year. So these are usually where examinations are held, inside this hall down here on the right hand side. But it's also where ceremonies take place for the students, and when they're called to the bar, it takes place in here. They also have a lot of formal dinners, and students are encouraged, actually required, to formally eat together in these beautiful neo-Georgian constructions. It's a sign that they have a certain number of dinners which they have to attend as part of their qualification. But look, that beautiful building. Now here we have the main gates into Inner Temple Gardens. So they're usually not open until 12:30, you guys. So unfortunately I can't get access to them. It's a little early. Now I'm filming right directly in the sun, but this gate actually dates back to 1730. And there you will see again the Pegasus and the Griffin on top. It's accessible entrance but no steps. Okay, so they're doing some work on the garden, but look how beautiful that is. You'd almost want to be a barrister just for the facilities alone in here. But we need to go all the way back to the very beginning to understand exactly the lands we're on. And that is going to take us back to the formation of one of the most famous religious orders in this country, the Knights Templar. Now we're in Elm Court first, and I just wanted to show you something significant. This is a free court adjoined this ancient buttery. So there was an ancient buttery in the grounds, and it was destroyed in the Great Fire of London, and again destroyed by enemy action in 1940. This area had extensive damage in 1940 and during the Blitz in London. So that's why Temple Hall there is more of a 1950s reconstruction, as it was extensively bombed during World War II. But look at these beautiful tranquil little gardens here in Elm Court. It's a little oasis away from the world. Now this is open to the public. Anybody's welcome to come here and just read your book and just get away from the hustle and bustle of the main streets of London. Isn't it stunning? Now we do have a little dedication here as well, and the award-winning garden was built on the former site of Fig Tree Court as part of the post-war reconstruction of the temple. It was remoulded in 2016 to enhance the layout and provide additional seating. So the central feature of the armillary sphere, representing celestial latitude and longitude, signifies Middle Temple's long association with navigation and exploration, through some famous members as Sir Walter Raleigh, Sir Martin Frobisher, Sir John Hawkins, Bartholomew Gosnold, Philip Amadeus, and more recently Sir Francis Chichester. And he has a big connection with Temple Hall here, Middle Temple Hall. We'll be talking about that very shortly. Although not a member, Sir Francis Drake was closely associated with the inn, and a table was made from the hatch cover of the Golden Hind is now housed in Middle Temple Hall. We'll concentrate first on Inner Temple, and then we'll head to see Middle Temple Hall and Temple Church. Now I could live here in this immediate spot, no problem. How beautiful this is. Now we are right in the middle of both Inns of Court. To the right of me is Inner Temple, and to the left we'll be exploring shortly is Middle Temple. But to explain exactly where we are, this temple area covering Inner, Middle and Outer Temple was once owned by the Knights Templar, and they were the religious military order that was founded in Jerusalem in 1119 during the Crusades. Now, they were actually founded to protect pilgrims who were visiting the Holy Land, and as a result, they received massive donations from very wealthy people all over the world and wealthy pilgrims, and they became massively influential, popular, too much so they became very rich actually, and very powerful. And these were the lands where they built a church when they returned here. The English branch of the order moved to this area, and in the 12th century they made their original headquarters, which was originally in Holborn, but they moved their lands right here onto the lands of what we now know as Inner and Middle Temple. But of course, like everything else, as soon as they became too powerful and too rich, they were disbanded. And most of them were executed actually quite brutally at the Tower of London. And for a period of time then, the land was reverted back to the Crown. It was actually 1307, it was European monarchs and Pope Clement V. They were the ones that really decided that the Templars were becoming far too popular and too powerful and instrumental. So in 1302, the order's London properties are taken back over by the Crown, and they were given to another similar religious order known as the Knights Hospitaller. But again, during the dissolution of the monarchies and Henry VIII, they too were disbanded, and the land was reverted again back to the Crown. But the Knights Hospitaller, when they had the land, they were the ones that leased the land then to the barristers. And I guess the origin of the barristers on this area, the first mention of them in manuscript was 1388. So when Henry VIII, in the period of dissolution, disbanded the Knights Hospitaller, the land reverted again back to the Crown. But it wasn't until that in 1609, James I actually made it more of a permanent fixture for the lawyers and the barristers. He granted the land to them on the condition that they maintained a chapel on the grounds and a permanent residency for the master of the house. So that effectively is where we do know 1609, but this is Temple Church, folks. And this church, with its distinctive round nave, built to resemble the Holy Sepulchre Church in Jerusalem, is still the only remnant left of the Knights Templar occupying the area. But inside is some of the effigies to some of the most famous Knights Templar. And we're going to take a look inside and tell you a little bit more about the interior of Now continuing on, let's head out towards Middle Temple Hall. Now apologies about the noise of the construction, you guys. We'll put a bit of music over it so it doesn't affect you too much. And now we've come out on the other section, which is Middle Temple, ladies and gents. And I'm going to head down to one of the most spectacular buildings in the area. Wait until you see this stunning Middle Temple Hall. And it's going to head down on this aptly named Pump Court. Look at this. It's just a different world, folks. I mean, literally like transporting you back into the 12th and 13th centuries. Please make sure you put this on your list, even if you just have a nice little wander around. The church is probably one of my favourite in London, even though I say that about them all. Look at Middle Temple Hall, ladies and gents. So this dates back to 1573 and is one of the best examples of an Elizabethan hall in the country. Now the hall is closed to the public, which is very sad. Absolutely love to visit inside. Right, let's get into it. So I suppose one of the most notable features in here is an actual stunning bench table. It's 29 feet long and it's thought to have been a gift from Elizabeth I and cut from her estate in Windsor. So the benchers who actually run this Middle Temple still dine here on occasion. They are required to dine here, as I said earlier on. It's all still part of their degree as well. It's a formal part of their, well, receiving their qualification is to dine with their colleagues, very formally of course, inside this hall. And Francis Drake was also dined here over the years. He received a huge welcome in 1586 when he returned after a successful expedition against the Spanish Indies. Another very famous visitor here would have been Sir Francis Drake, who had successfully circumnavigated the globe on board the Golden Hind. It's also in here, ladies and gentlemen, where Shakespeare performed Twelfth Night exclusively for Her Majesty Elizabeth I. He himself actually acted in that production. But one of these days I'll get in there and I'll do a fabulous tour inside there. But look at this area known as Fountain Court. And then we have the Garden Court here as well. Just truly special. And up here again, some of the Inns of Court, featuring all the names, and the chambers of the barristers as well, featuring all their names. All these beautiful properties. I mean, it truly is a different world. Look how elegant. And this is right off of the embankment, ladies and gents. Now another literary connection to the building is on the stained glass inside there. Features a picture of Dr. Joseph Jekyll and Roberta Hyde. And it said that Robert Louis Stevenson, who himself was a Middle Templar, is said to have got the inspiration and the name for his novel from this very stained glass window, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The hall also contains amazing paintings of Elizabeth I. She's said to have dined here several times. Charles I and Charles II, James II, William III, Queen Anne and George I. Now, I would be more than happy to include this, ladies and gentlemen, on a private tour of London for any of you that would like to join me. You know what to do. All the details of my private tours of London are available down below. And don't forget, we are now restructuring the company to having some paid tours as well, which you can book on our site, Tours by Foot, hence dropping the name Free Tours by Foot. Now, we are keeping some free tours, including my Westminster and the one me and Margaret conduct, We All in One, the City of Westminster as well. But if you'd like to book onto them, just quote Sinead 10. I should give you a nice little discount if you book on them. Now, just before we head into the gardens, for my American friends, I almost forgot, of course, the most important part about this. So in the days of the British Empire, lawyers often came here from the colonies to train, and 5 Middle Templars were among the original signatories of the Declaration, American Declaration of Independence, while 7 more actually helped draft the Constitution of the United States. And the Magna Carta, of course, was the first draft of what would later become the influence or the inspiration for many's a constitution around the world. But Americans often received their legal training at the inns even after the country became independent. This tradition actually stopped not long then after England went to war with America in 1812, and we all know how that ended. So we will definitely try and come back in here, but we're going to head into Middle Temple Gardens now. You're going to see some beautiful blooms in here of white and red roses. Look how stunning this is with Temple Hall in the background. I mean, this is just Instagram heaven. Let's head inside. Now, this is open to the public. I think it's up until about 4 o'clock every day, folks. And we're going to make our way down. Now, when the roses are in bloom here, it's quite significant because the red and white rose border, and they were portrayed by Shakespeare in Henry VI, Part 1, as a place where the red rose of Lancaster and the white rose of York were first plucked, marking the beginning of the English War of the Roses, ladies and gents, featured in Henry VI, Shakespeare's Henry VI. And as we're walking through here, and I would like to say I remembered these verses verbatim from my English Shakespeare lessons many moons ago. But unfortunately, my memory doesn't serve me as well as it used to, so I will be reading this from a script for you. And that will conclude a little tour. So we'll take an excerpt from that, and one that was recited by the Plantagenets. Since you are tongue-tied and so loath to speak, in dumb significance proclaim your thoughts. Let him that is a true-born gentleman and stands upon the honour of his birth, if he suppose that I have pleaded truth, from off this briar pluck a white rose with me. And the Somersets, let him that is no coward, nor no flatterer, but dare maintain the party of the truth, pluck a red rose from off this thorn with me. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our little mini tour. But I will be taking you up to see the other 2 inns of court in London. That'll be Lincoln Inn and Gray's Inn. We'll probably do this as a series, Part 1 and Part 2. Thanks for watching, ladies and gents. Sinead here on a glorious day in London at Middle Temple. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I truly hope you enjoyed this one as much as me.